Guys, look, I'm not going to lie. I can't be asked to review this weekend. And no, it's not because I've gone down the typical YouTuber route of burning myself out. More just because it's f***ing France, dude. And I mean, just looking at this track is enough to give anyone a brain aneurysm. Hey there guys, and welcome to FP1 and the comedy review, the only original series I think I've ever made. As we all know, this week we bore witness to the French Grand Prix, the only event that when cancelled last year, the entire F1 community jumped for joy. Perhaps if you're a new F1 fan and don't know what I'm blabbering on about, aside from the fact that the circuit looks like a meth addict's wet dream, the racing is, well, typically non-existent. The pole sitter has won every event at the track since it returned to the calendar to no one's delight in 2018, and as I write this on Saturday after quali, I'm just hoping that maybe this year we'll be able to make it through the whole race without dying of utter boredom. So it's been a bit of a negative start, hasn't it? But before I continue, if you do enjoy the video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. I've not checked my analytics, I won't lie, but I imagine a large percentage of you aren't yet subscribed, so please do help us out and try to get us to 25,000 subscribers as we are so close now. Anyway, with my plugs out of the way, let's jump into the comedy review of the 2021 French Grand Prix. So from this weekend, the new rules preventing flexi wings came into force, meaning that Mercedes and Red Bull had nothing to moan about this week, and so decided to revert back to track limits again. And it was this topic that plagued Friday's running as the action got underway, with sausage curbs causing damage to both Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen's cars. This treated us with several petty exchanges on the FIA radio, and one little side note here, I've just clocked how similar Michael Massey sounds to Korg from the Avengers, and I'm sorry, I just can't take him seriously anymore.
There she is. I'll take it out of here.
Back to FP1, it was Mercedes on top, Bottas ahead of Hamilton, as the pair swapped chassis for the weekend. The team still not convinced that Bottas is just trash and needs to be replaced by George Russell as soon as possible. A few cars also had moments due to the high winds, including Aston's Sebastian Vettel and the Haas car of Mick Schumacher, who in the end turned out just to be preparing for his qualifying run. Moving on to FP2, when the momentum would shift to Red Bull, with Verstappen coming out on top at the end of Friday. His teammate Sergio Perez would struggle, however, only finishing 12th and nearly coming to blows with Nikita Mazepin, which, as Callum Ilott will attest to, is something you really don't want to do. Otherwise, it was a bit of a quiet session in the Castellet, which, let's be honest, wasn't a huge shock to anyone. Saturday would begin with FP3 then, and Mazepin had kept himself more or less out of trouble up to this point. But we were back to status quo soon enough, with the Russian testing out if his Haas car was any faster in reverse around the French Grand Prix circuit. It was Max Verstappen on top once again though, with Alpine also looking quick, both Alonso and Ocon making it into the top 10. Question was, could they keep this up heading into qualifying? Well, Yuki Tsunoda continued his trend of ending his qualifying sessions wedged in the barrier, lasting just one corner at full speed before his car turned into a stripper, shaking its arse around before giving a lap dance to the barrier. This brought out the first red flag of the session, making it a bit of a mad dash to set lap times at the end of Q1, and qualifying god Lance Stroll set a surprisingly good lap in the Aston Martin, which only made sense once we realised that he had abused track limits and had his time deleted. Lance would have got another shot. However, Mick Schumacher, who had incredibly got his car into Q2 contention, also tried the backwards Haas approach, except I don't think bidding his car in the wall was really the ideal outcome here. That said, the red flag allowed him to make his first Q2 appearance in his career. Good to see him taken after his dad, I guess. Speaking of Q2, this was a bit of a quieter affair, but the shock result was home hero Esteban Ocon, who failed to make the final part of qualifying despite some strong form up to this point. Sebastian Vettel was also unable to make the cut in the Aston Martin, missing out by just a tenth of a second. It was Bottas on top though heading into Q3, as the power shifted once again between Merc and Red Bull. The Austrian team would get the last laugh however, with the outfit pulling a 2014 Mercedes performance and finding a massive amount of pace on the final session of the day. Verstappen would blitz the field to take the first non-Mercedes pole around the Castellet since it returned to the calendar in 2018, while Hamilton picked Bottas to P2, proving that the chassis wasn't the issue. Valtteri was just shit. That sets up a bit of an interesting race, I've got to say. Tsunoda and Stroll starting at the back and having the ability to fight their way through the field, as well as drivers like Schumacher and Ocon out of position coming into Sunday. And that was the last bit of the script I was writing before the race itself, so either I was going to be proved right, or perhaps more likely, that last sentence will age about as well as Bottas' championship hopes. In the end though, even I've got to admit, that wasn't half bad. Both Hamilton and Verstappen got away well at the start, though Max then got confused as to where the track went once he got to turn 1, giving up the lead to #blessed in the process. That wasn't the only on-track action, however, as the McLarens of Norris and Ricciardo tussled into turn 1 as well, and Mick Schumacher undid all his good work by taking the scenic route around the first sector. While the battle at the front quietened down, the midfield runners were taking the idea that you can't overtake around Paul Ricard and telling it to go do one. Daniel Ricciardo especially was on fire in the McLaren, catching and passing Alonso before pulling a similar move on Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. The Aussie wasn't done there though, benefiting from an undercut to get ahead of Gasly and Sainz not soon after. And as I'm sure you'll appreciate, as a massive Daniel Ricciardo simp myself, I was very happy with this, hence why half of this race review has already been about him. Getting back on topic and going back to those undercuts though, and the top teams were keeping an eye on how powerful this was. Mercedes making a Ferrari-inspired decision and forgetting about the race leader, instead pitting Bottas over Hamilton. This left the door open for Red Bull, who boxed the right driver in Verstappen, allowing him to jump Hamilton and retake the race lead. Lewis wasn't going to give up without a fight though, sticking within a second of Verstappen over the next stint, while even Valtteri was uncharacteristically pacey in keeping with the top two. Soon enough, however, Bottas remembered who he was and began falling off the pace again. At this point in the race, people were starting to question whether we could see a two-stop being the faster strategy, and it was Red Bull who took the gamble, pitting Max Verstappen onto fresh mediums and letting him charge after Hamilton and Mercedes. This was a fantastic chase to watch, but we were all forgetting that Max had to make it past one of the greatest talents of all time, in Valtteri Bottas. When it came down to it, Bottas' defence was so depressingly poor I wanted to gouge my eyes out with a spoon, the Finn forgetting how to brake and offering up P2 on a plate. Now I swear, if George does not get this seat in 2022, I'm gonna f***ing riot. Anyway, Porridge Man's piss poor showing meant that Max could close after Lewis, who put up a good fight, but eventually had to yield on lap 52. And if Mercedes' day couldn't get any worse, Bottas also decided to let the other Red Bull of Perez pass in the closing laps as well. So in the end, Max Verstappen took Red Bull's first hat-trick in the turbo hybrid era, and also had the honour of picking up the Harambe trophy at the end of the race. And I'm sorry, but these are awful and nobody is changing my mind on it. But hey, there you have it, an actually decent French Grand Prix. And trust me, that's not a sentence I thought I'd be saying coming into this one. If you did enjoy my take on this weekend, do be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me what you thought. All of this really helps push the video out there, so the more people that do it, you'd be really helping me out. And if you want to hear even more from me, then you can join our Discord community and also follow me over on Twitter, links for which you can find down in the description below. Anyway, that's all from me today. I will see you soon with a brand new video, but until then, have a good one.